Nope, I got no weights. Goldfish. But do you have any sevens? But you beat me, man. I can't. No. Looks like Alaska's on mine. Alaska, my pride and joy. I'm going to get my bear kill you, man. He's going to.
So that's not actually how America got Alaska from Russia. That's just a story my grandpa told me a few times. I'm an awesome grandpa. But anyway, today I will be teaching you how America actually got Alaska from Russia. So before we go into the history, let's talk about the state of Alaska. Alaska is 656,425 square miles, making it the biggest state in the US. As of 2014, the Alaskan population is a little over 700,000 people. A very low amount of people for such a huge chunk of land. The top 5 industries, starting with the one that makes the most, is oil, tourism, fishing, mining, and timber. Much of the land is wilderness, with over 129 million acres of forest land with lots of wildlife living in the state, such as bear, caribou, and eagles. Now, much of Alaska was uncharted back in the 1800s, with both the Russians and Americans not knowing everything about the area. The Russians explored the coast quite well, but that was pretty much it. The New York Tribune way back on April 1, 1867 stated that the territory was 400 square miles, which was over 200 square miles too low to the original purchased land. America also didn't know that there was gold in Alaska until 3 decades later, after the US had purchased the land. Yes, I said purchase, and no, it's not a card game. On March 30th, 1867, the Secretary of State during the time, William H. Stewart, had gotten the Congress to approve the purchase of Alaska for only $7 million for less than 2 cents an acre. So why would Russia sell Alaska for so cheap? Let's go into a brief history. There were only a few Native American tribes living in Alaska, like the Aleut tribe, which the name of Alaska was taken from. Russian merchants come to trade with the various tribes living in Alaska, and the merchants wanted walrus ivory and sea otter fur, which was valued greatly during this time because of the Little Ice Age was still going on. The Russian-American Company, or the RAC, controlled much of Alaska. They control all the mines, trading, and they could even trade with other nations independently. The Tsar of Russia didn't really seem to care too much, since they had so much land already in Asia, and they rather would expand their empire in Asia than in North America. Also, there were only a few hundred Russians living in Alaska. The main leader of Alaska, which was a merchant named Alexander Berov, he made Alaska his home by setting up many additions to the place, such as schools and factories, and helping out the natives to farm. When Alexander left, the company had failed because the native tribes had killed almost all of the sea otters, and the businessmen couldn't really organize well with other products to trade. That's just one of the reasons why Russia didn't want Alaska anymore. It just wasn't a whole lot going there. And plus, there was far bigger reasons, like the Crimea in the world. Britain, France, and Turkey all fought against Russia. Russia had to focus all their troops and supplies to the Crimean Peninsula, and they didn't have enough troops to defend Alaska. Russia and Great Britain were rivals, so they wanted a barrier between British Canada and their territory. No way were the Russians were going to sell it to Britain, so the idea of the US owning that land and being that barrier sounded pretty good to the Russians. So how about the US? Why did they want Alaska? There was a similar huge purchase of land called the Louisiana Purchase, and that caused many settlers to go out settle in the West. But how about Alaska? It's just way over there! It's not even connected to the US. Many Americans felt proud of their country, and they believed in the manifest destiny, which was the desire to expand and gain new land from the Atlantic coast to the Pacific coast. William Henry Stewart was the Secretary of State under the Presidents Abraham Lincoln and Andrew Johnson, and so they wrote up a treaty on March 29, 1867, and signed it the next day, March 30th, 1869. The treaty was also sent to Congress. It was a bit tricky to get Congress to accept the decision to purchase Alaska. Senator Charles Sumner helped to get others agree earlier back in 1859 and 1865 that they should buy Alaska, and he spoke for more than 3 hours on his argument. Russia did offer to sell Alaska around that time, but America was too busy going through the Civil War. However, the US Congress did in fact agree on the purchase by one vote, and the US was handed over to Alaska 6 months later on October 18 at the Alaskan capital, Sitka. The Russian flag came down and the American flag was risen over Alaska in a flag ceremony. Both countries agreed that was a good deal. Now, during the flag changing ceremony, the Russian flag didn't want to come down, and when it did, it fell on the Russian soldiers' bayonets, which was a bad omen. Also, in the American newspapers, many of them agreed that it was a great trade. However, a few poked fun into Stewart, saying that, oh, Stewart's folly, or Stewart's icebox. And now we got shows like freaking Ice Road Truckers and Deadliest Sketch. Now there's so much more to the purchase. Now, not a whole lot happened to Alaska during that time. Also today. Sorry, Chicken Alaska. But anyway, most Russians left the US territory and the US Army stayed until June 1877. America had thoughts that there might be gold in Alaska, but then it was truly discovered in 1896 and it sparked the gold rush. No, not the show Gold Rush Alaska! Why is there so many reality shows about Alaska? It was called the Klondike Gold Rush, or also called the Yukon Gold Rush. It was the second biggest gold rush in America. Whoever had doubts or made jokes about Alaska, this surely changed their minds. Many took the harsh trip to Klondike, but it took a year for gold diggers to get there because of the snowstorms and the harsh terrain. Only 30,000 of the 100,000 travelers had made it. Many others quit or died in the cold. Mining was hard because of the permafrost, but many boom towns were created, like in the California gold rush. Only about 4,000 people actually found gold, and many heard of yet another gold rush in Nome, Alaska in 1899, so many moved there. It was the third largest gold rush, and it became the largest city in Alaska. It was much easier to attain the gold because it was on the beaches. There was chaos and gangs in this gold rush, and later on, mining companies also jumped in. People are still hunting for gold in the ocean in Nome today. In fact, there's a show about that called Bering Sea Gold. So those miners were quitting their jobs in hopes of getting more money for themselves and their families, and it did send a lot of people out to Alaska, but it didn't really affect the nation all that much. But what if I told you Alaska helped end segregation? Okay, so that's a bold statement, but let me explain. During World War II, Japan set its eyes and guns on Alaska, so the US needed a road to send over supplies and troops to defend it, which is now known as the Alaskan Highway today. Segregation between the African Americans and whites was very strict in US Army, and they sent over many African Americans to help build the road. They thought they would fail because they lacked the proper tools and machinery, but nevertheless, they overcame the harsh conditions and they proven that they could work just as hard and as quick as their counterparts, white people. If Russia still had Alaska, we wouldn't see this great milestone in improving race equality in the United States. Perhaps the biggest turning point that America has had from Alaska since its purchase was that when they discovered just how much natural resources it held. All the resources in Alaska are valued up in the billions and maybe even later in the trillions, way past its original purchase of $7 million. There's copper, gold, and molybdenum, timber, seafood, and of course oil. There are at least 3.7 billion barrels of proven oil reserves in Alaska, and they export a good chunk of it to other nations. But Alaska is also helping supply the rest of the United States with oil as the third state with the most oil, since now almost 40% of America's oil is from its own mining from its several states. It's great that there's so much oil in Alaska, but drilling for oil can cause increase in diabetes and alcoholism in oil drilling communities, more pollution such as nitrogen gases being released into the air when mining, and also endangering animals' migration patterns and their habitats. Studies show that by 2050, 80% of America's energy source will be from new renewable energy sources. It won't be easy, but we are helping the environment and ourselves in making a better world. I hope you learned more about the Alaskan Purchase and how Alaska helped to create major turning points in US history. Now, Alaska is a cool state and I hope to go there one day as with my grandpa, because he also really wants to go there. You know what? I'm gonna go now. I'm gonna get myself a park bag. So that was my documentary on the Alaskan Purchase. So I hope you enjoyed the documentary. It was for a school project, And let me know down in the comments if I got anything wrong or missed some important information, because you know what, I'm only human, so I will add those in the YouTube annotations. So, you know, if I missed anything, let me know. So I thank you for watching, thank you so much, hope you enjoyed it, and that would be it. Oh wait, I had to go to Alaska, wait, got it.